Welcome back to another session. I would like to speak in today's session about forgiveness. And I'm going to try and connect the law of forgiveness and the art of forgiveness with depression and anxiety. Uh, they have a connection somewhere at the hip. And for most people, the suffering that we experience, however that suffering is manifested, pain, poor health, mental issues, psychological warfare, even spiritual battles. I think for many people, that can be easily resolved if they understood the law of forgiveness. We've heard the word forgive and forget. We've heard it said so many times, but we've lost sight of the importance of forgiveness in our lives. Um, Forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself. It's not a gift you give to another. I have come across people who I have to say, um, have a different understanding of what that word means. Many have been wronged by other people in the past, and with some level of glee and even a boastful demeanor, they say, well, I'll never forgive him, and I'll never forgive her, or I'll never forgive them. And they say this as though that there is something that they are denying other people by refusing to forgive. And I have seen so many people, close relatives, some close friends, and some people not so close or distant, who have suffered and who continue to suffer just because they will not forgive. Um, Now, forgiveness simply means just completely letting go, um, either of an idea, a thought, an expectation, even a sin, something done to you, something done um, without cause, without justification, without remorse. Um, but you have to learn that when things happen to you, whatever happens has become a mental blueprint, a mental input into what goes into your imagination. I have mentioned and I have referred to your intellectual faculties, one of which is your memory. Some people use their memories in the wrong way. Our memories are there, our memory is there rather, to store, or to, you might say, to chronicle our experiences. It files those experiences in a manner that serves us, but also in a manner that can actually um, hold us back, can be less empowering. But we have the choice. The memory doesn't work on its own accord. On its own accord. We have to choose what we want to bring out from the memory and place either in our perception or our imagination or our focus. And therefore, one of the key things about forgiveness is understanding how your memory works. Think about an old a video cassette player where you have something recorded and you insert the video cassette player into the video player itself. And let's say it's a 90-minute video, and when you insert it, you realize, well, I stopped at 54 minutes. And this is something about your past, and you have a choice. You can rewind it to the beginning, and you can play the experience of the movie again, and you can rewatch the movie or whatever is recorded, or you can carry on from where you are. Our memory works in the same manner. It just stores up whatever we have experienced. But each time we go back and we replay what happened to us, or what people did to us, or even what we did to ourselves, we give more life to that experience. And so in many ways, once you insert the cassette player, it goes back to the most dominant experience with the strongest emotion. And therefore, it replays that regularly. Now, with your memory, you can replay the past. With your imagination, you can pre-play the future. If your imagination is not at work, or has not been trained on how it should work, your memory serves as a default player. So, if you haven't trained your imagination and you haven't given your imagination a specific word picture, a thought, an image, or sound, because the imagination of the mind has to move towards a thought or away from one, it defaults back to going back to the thoughts that predominated the state prior to that moment in time. And if your past has a strong emotional experience in it, it defaults you back to your memory and those horrible moments. And it just replays that experience. And it continues to replay the experience because we give it light and we give it life. Forgiveness is actually saying, well, I'm going to let go. I'm going to erase what may have happened to me. You press record and you just let it wipe out the entirety of the emotional experience. You don't wipe out and you never wipe out what has happened, which is part of the reason why people say, forgive, but you can choose not to forget because you don't want it to happen for the second time. You can't be naive. You can't erase the memory completely, but you can erase the emotional, the strong emotional, negative emotional experiences. And that is how you start the process of forgiving. You've got to let go completely. Firstly, you have to forgive yourself. And this is where perhaps there's a struggle with most people, especially those who are suffering from anxiety and depression, is the unwillingness to forgive self. Secondly, you have to forgive other people. You have to forgive errors of omission that were committed against, towards you, or errors of commission that were committed against or towards you. Errors you committed on yourself and errors that other people did to you. Whatever it might be, you just have to forgive. I talk about two stories about two people, and perhaps I think this might be an opportunity to bring it forward. Yes, it's a different worldview to most people, but I think that the story is fascinating nonetheless. Two disciples, one master. The master says to one, you will be the one who actually sells me. You will betray me. And to the other he says, and you profess to love me. And you've sworn to be by my side and to be with me. But you will deny me 3 times on the same night when I will be betrayed by the other. Surely, as the story goes, if you believe the account of the story, the first, called Judas, sold his master for whatever sums he thought was satisfactory. And his desire was to get money. And this is perhaps could be interesting for a lot of people who actually find that they've achieved everything they wanted and they're still depressed. Judas, for a few silver bags or a few gold bags, but a few bags nonetheless, sold his master for money. He wanted to be wealthy and he got paid. When he had the money, finally the transaction had taken place. There you have him take him. There goes your money. The deal is done. He finds out something. The idea of wealth and the idea of prosperity and abundance or money was much better in his mind than it was in reality, which is one of the things I say to a lot of people, which is I say that there is no joy in things. There's only joy in relationships and people. And until you become wealthy, and until you've actually tasted and experienced wealth, that is when you come to the understanding that money has no intrinsic value in itself. The purpose of money is not to make you happy. So depression by people who have so much money is because they actually think, when I get wealthy and when I've done all of this, then I'll be happy. That's not the purpose of money. Money is supposed to enable you to get into your place of service and purpose, and to enable you to be in a state of relaxation so that you're at ease and that the spirit within you is manifesting itself without thinking about the physical obstacles, such as things, and therefore you can serve your purpose to the world. Money is also supposed to serve as a multiplier, a tool that allows you to create opportunities for people. And you derive your pleasure or joy by seeing how you've been a blessing to other people's lives. And so you reap the happiness as a byproduct of creating happiness for other people. In any case, Judas had the money. He realized, oh shit, I am not happy. Judas was so disappointed with himself. He was so upset with himself that he went back and said, I would like to undo this deal. I made a mistake. Here is your money. I don't want to be associated with the acts which I committed. And he was told, well, a deal is a deal. It's been done. Take the money and go away. We bring into the conversation to today's topic, which is forgiveness. Judas went away and he had a lot of remorse in his heart. One of the reasons he had this remorse was because he realized that he had sold out on his core values, on his core principle. In his heart, he could see that he fell short. He fell short. Big problem. Judas could not forgive himself. Unfortunately, he chose the way out, which is what most people who suffer from depression tend to do. They choose the path of least resistance. They say, well, the sins I've committed to myself and to other people, or the sins that other people have committed towards me, have become too great, that I must end this suffering, my suffering, but also end the suffering that other people might be feeling by taking myself out of the picture. So Judas hung himself. That's one side of the ledger. On the other side is Peter. Peter, who was supposed to be the rock upon which the church was built, the one who professed his love for his master, and even swore and promised that he would die with his master. The day the master was arrested, on the same evening, he denied his master 3 times before the cock crowed. Peter, at the end of the 3rd crow, remembered the words of the master, and he was ashamed. You see, shame is something for most people that starts the whole cycle of depression. We're ashamed of something. Peter was ashamed and he ran away. The difference between Peter and Judas is Peter forgave himself. He forgave himself so much so that a few weeks later, he stood out and he gave a sermon and he rebuked those who seized and killed his master. Anybody who read the account of the story would say, well, surely he has some guts. This is the same fella who denied his master, ran away, now he's come back and is telling us and telling the whole world how we should have stood by his master. But the point of the message is a simple one. Peter forgave himself. He let go. He picked up a piece of paper and he said, there's nothing written on this paper. What I did yesterday, I have paid a price for. What I will become tomorrow, I get to journal. I get to decide. I get to become. And Peter became the rock upon which the Christian church was built. One of the apostles and one of the disciples, and one of the most powerful. 2 stories of 2 men connected to, perhaps you might say, the same falling short of the mark. One forgave and the other did not. You have to learn to forgive yourself. Whatever shame you might be experiencing, whatever traumas and setbacks and omissions and commissions of the past, you have to let go. Now, there's a saying that should you find yourself in a chronically leaking boat, energy devoted to changing vessels will be much better than energy devoted to patching up leaks. Now let that sink. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm ashamed, I've done things in the past. Things in the past have been done back to me. You have a choice. You can take a piece of paper that has been written on, which might be your past and evidence of your past, and you can take an eraser and you can try to erase every single part of what happened in the past. And the more you do that, the more you realize there's just so much more to erase. And it's just so time consuming. But every time you want to erase, you have to read the sentence. You're replaying the event. And by reading the sentence, you believe, okay, I can delete and I can erase this section. But you've just relived the experience. Or you can say, I'm going to burn my boats. To hell with the past. To hell with the experiences. I will just start anew. I will become born again. I'm going to die to my old self and I'm going to become anew. I'm going to let go and I'm going to let God. You have to learn how to get out of your guilt. Get out of your way. The obstacle is yourself. In the sessions prior, I talked about resistance. The resistance is coming from you. It's self-inflicted. It's not something without. The flow and the energy will continue. This intelligence we call life wants to flow to you and through you. And whenever you stop and say, I will not forgive another, I will not forgive myself, you stop the flow. Like the Dead Sea, it starts to stagnate and suddenly starts to smell. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm always drawn to the opportunity for cold dips. And I think some people might relate to this. If you live in an area where you have access to a body of water, unless it's a stream or a river, every now and then you have forks where you have a flow, but as you go through past the autumn and the winter, and it starts to get warm and the rainfall intensity starts to decrease, there's less water, and so the flow reduces. And suddenly what you find is there's a section in the pathway of the water where there is no circulation. The water becomes stagnated. The first thing I usually observe is you start to see flies, and the water starts to change in color. It starts to smell. And then suddenly it becomes more of an eyesore. Now there's still always a section where you see some flow. Now the point of the matter is that whenever you resist, you're taking the fork out of the pathway and you're creating a zone where there will be no flow. There's resistance. And the water stays, the energy stays there. And then it starts to stagnate, and then suddenly it starts to smell, and it starts to stink. There is no life that can come from that water. Which is why when you watch movies or documentaries of people stuck in a desert, the one thing you do not do is drink stagnant water. You have to treat it first. But if you have flow, and the flow carries on continuously, you have something similar to spring water. Life is part of the reason why the Great One is called spring water. I am life, and whoever drinks my water lives. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. If people have done things to you, let go. Forgive them. Move on. Now, you don't have to be, how do I put this? You have a choice. You see, breakthroughs in life occur just like that. But also breakthroughs in life take a lifetime. You can choose that the forgiveness process will take 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, and 1 year. Or you could just simply say, the person that I used to be in the past, having paid the price for my sins or for my missing of the mark of what life should be, I choose not to be in the future. So I draw a line in the sand and I just let go completely. And at that moment, you've made that decision. You never look back, and you just simply look forward. And you stay on that path to the future until you've developed the resilience and the strength to be able to look back and not stay stuck. In many ways, Lot's wife didn't actually turn into a pillar of salt because it was inevitable. She did so because she disobeyed. The issue was not do not look back. It's flee and do not look back until the work has been completed. I bet had she come back the next day, she could have walked back into the same place and nothing would have happened. In a similar manner, you look forward, you forgive the past, and you don't look back until you've developed some momentum, some self-healing, some strength and tenacity, some mental stamina that would enable you look back towards the same past and have no emotional experience about the same thing. In sessions I covered, I think about 4 sessions prior, I referred to something, which is I said, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. When you forgive a past, a person, a group of people, so much so that you can look at them and be indifferent, no emotion, then you know you've reached the place of peace. If you look back and there is hate, there's an emotion, it means you're still wedded to the past. You're still anchored in that past. You have to learn to let go and stay in the place of love. There's always going to be faith, hope, and love. The greatest of all is love. And the reason is partly because with love, you can forgive. Without love, you cannot forgive. And that self-love and the love of other people has to be so strong that you catch yourself saying the same words as the great teacher. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And if you can think about that in your life and say, I forgive the person in the past, and let me just, in good faith, assume that whatever they did, whatever they gave me, whatever experience they presented to me, that's all they knew. It's easy to forgive them. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You just let go and you move on. Now, I'm going to end today's session at this point, but let me leave you with something, which is to simply say, the law of forgiveness is always working. The law of forgiveness exists. There are so many people who are suffering from cancer, dementia, some form of difficult, unnecessary illness. There are people whose health and well-being are in a state of a mess. It has little to do with aging or the breakdown of the body, but it has more to do with the thoughts and the emotions they inhabit in their subconscious mind, and it's manifested through the body. Ignorance is our enemy. And the moment we simply say, I'm going to forgive, and I'm going to seek for better understanding, and I'm going to study and focus on people whose lives I'd like to be living, and choose faith, and move into a state of expressing my love for other people and myself. At that point in time, we start to see a change in our lives. One of that change will start with growth, abundance, and prosperity. See, by their fruits, you will know them. If the fruit you're bearing is not abundance and grace and faith and love and hope, it means that you are holding on to something in the past that you need not hold on to. I'll leave you with the following sentences as I close. Your past does not go into the past and stay there. That is not a play on words. The things that happen to us in life, some of the things we call our present or our past. The present doesn't go into the past, and the past does not go further into the past. Our past goes into our future to confront us in such a way that sometimes whenever we see things happen to us, it's not because it was destined or predestined. It was simply because we wrongly used our imagination and our intellect, and we refused to forgive the past or whatever came in the past. And because we hold a strong emotion, a negative emotion, almost a hatred for a person, ourselves, an experience, that emotion is so potent that the picture in your memory is sent into your imagination. And your imagination cannot distinguish between what you want and what you do not want. It simply takes the raw material and it multiplies it and it gives it back to you. You don't sow in the same soil and reap in the same soil. Sometimes you sow in one soil and you reap in a different soil. It might take 10 years, 5 years, and 6 years. But we tend to find that there is so much suffering that comes our way, and sometimes we say, why me? And the answer is simple. The chickens have come home to roost. The law of sowing and reaping works. The law of cause and effect is always working. And that if there is something in your present you're not happy with, let me leave you with this. You've got to let go. Forgive. Forgive the depression. Forgive the doctors and the teachers and your mum and your dad and yourself and your boyfriend from the past and all of that, and simply say, "Is me, O Lord, standing in the need of prayer?" I let go and I move forward. I move towards my calling, and I hope in your particular circumstances that at some point in your life you can stop and you can look back and you can say, I kept the faith, I finished the race, and I got to my place. Now, I hope this has been valuable to you or someone else.